Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to a snowy Saturday afternoon here today. I wanted to give you an update on the most recent happenings in our government and the whole impeachment circus, and also a number of incredible victories for us as an American people and also for the Trump administration. So it was a pretty eventful week this week of things that happened. Let's start briefly with the positives before we get to the nonsense, shall we? This week, President Trump signed two of the most important trade deals in decades. Between the United States and China. The phase one of the China trade deal was signed and will take effect later this year. I think early in February, which should open up billions of dollars worth of trade with China, especially for our farmers, because China buys tons and tons and tons of farm products for us, especially things like soybeans and corn and so on. So that will help boost the farm economy, of course. And the second trade deal that was passed by the House that I think he signed it. If not, he's in the process of doing so. It passed the Senate. It had already passed the House. And that's the USMCA, the United States, Mexico, Canada trade deal, the replacement from NAFTA. For NAFTA, the lousy trade deal that we had initiated during the Clinton years. This will also open up markets. It will create jobs, allow for more manufacturing in America, so more American jobs. It'll also take down some barriers to trade between our two closest trading partners, of course, Mexico and Canada, as far as proximity, shipping ability, trucking ability to get products there or here, whatever. So both of those are tremendously important for our nation's future, our economic future. There are two victories that belong securely to President Trump because he's the one who pushed for them, he and his people. I don't care what the House may try to say or other members of Congress may say that somehow they were responsible for what happened. No, they weren't. Obama had nothing to do with it. The Democrats in Congress had nothing to do with this. Other than to vote for it because they knew that's what their constituents wanted. So these two deals are in force, and it should affect our economy positively for years to come. President Trump also this week signed an executive order prohibiting religious discrimination in our schools, which has been a growing problem that people of faith, especially the Christian faith, have been told they must leave their faith outside the school, that because of this warped understanding of the so-called separation of church and state, that they weren't allowed to pray or bring their Bibles to school. And it's false. It's a lie. It's these radical left-wing atheist organizations like the Freedom from Religion Foundation have been spewing these lies for decades. They send letters to town councils and school boards and things threatening them with action, and the truth of the matter is their arguments aren't law. They're just propagandists for atheists. But many schools and school boards haven't wanted to battle it out in court, or at least the threat of that with them, so they discriminate against Christians. Well, President Trump is taking steps to change that. So that's another way that he's shown that he is on the side of those of us in this country who are serious about our faith and want to practice our faith in the public arena. That doesn't mean America becomes a theocracy or everybody's going to be forced to go to a certain church, all this hysterical lunacy that the left always spews. It just means that people won't be restricted from sharing their faith and practicing their faith as they want to. They're not stuck behind church walls doing it as the left would like. So that was another huge win. Again, it didn't get much press, but I wanted to report on that. And somebody also told me that somebody reported this week that Trump struck down the last of the Michelle Obama dreaded school lunch program this week. And, it was one of those things where she was trying to get them to eat all kinds of weird garbage that the kids didn't eat. They'd throw their lunches away and, waste the food and waste the money. So that's dead. And now hopefully schools will provide food that kids actually want to eat and is still nutritious for them. So another way that big government was trying to ruin people's lives that's been undone now by the Trump administration. So that's another good thing that happened this week. Now on the other side with the silly impeachment circus, finally San Fran Nan decided that she couldn't stall any longer, that she was looking even like a bigger buffoon than usual by holding on to these articles of impeachment after months saying, we have to do this fast, we have to do this fast. Trump is an imminent threat to the national security of America. We've got to get this done. And when they had their vote before Christmas, then she sat on them for a month before she did anything with them, instead of transferring them to the Senate, which the Constitution requires. I don't know, maybe her hemorrhoids were acting up and she got sick of sitting on them, I don't know. But whatever the case, she finally signed the articles and they were walked to the Senate side of the Capitol building and officially presented to the Senate this week. Pelosi had this signing ceremony with autographed pens, ceremonial pens souvenir pens that she used. It was silly and nonsensical, and those things will be for sale somewhere in a junk shop in a couple months because nobody's going to want to buy them. Same place Hillary Clinton's books end up after the initial press dies down about them. They go to the bargain rack and nobody ever buys them. But that's what she did this week and tried to make a big deal about it. I mean, she is becoming the most unhinged joke of a leader that this nation has ever had. Absolutely, she is the worst House Speaker we've ever had. And she's already lost it after 2 years once before, and maybe that will happen again, we hope, in 2020, because she has done nothing with the Congress. Yeah, they passed USMCA right after impeachment to try to take the publicity off of something that was growing in unpopularity among the American people. But other than that, they haven't done anything that's been significant since she's been in charge at the beginning of 2019. They spend all their time trying to get rid of Trump and undo the 2016 election, and that's all that Congress has been about. So she's a joke, and now her part of the procedure is officially over in the sense that no longer does the House control what happens. It was interesting to just watch the little death march across the Capitol with the entourage carrying them to the Senate. Adam Schiff and Gerald Nadler, the two main House prosecutors in the case, kind of not quite leading the way, but in the front of the procession. Two clips from Monty Python and the Holy Grail came to mind when I was watching them walk. One was the procession of pushing the cart through the town where the guy's banging the bell saying, "Bring out your dead." And the other one was the procession of the monks chanting in Latin and smacking themselves on the head with a board. This is about how silly these folks look bringing this to the Senate. Oh, they're bragging about how historical this is, but it's a pile of crap, and it always has been. So what happens next now? Well, they have already sworn in the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, to preside over the case, and he in turn has sworn in all the senators who will sit as jurors in the case. So Tuesday is when they are supposed to begin the actual court proceedings, or the Senate proceedings. It's not really a court case, but it's supposed to follow court rules. But at any rate, and what we're seeing is, and this will continue, I guarantee you, is a lot of other hype and nonsense coming from the Democrats. Suddenly they had new information. This indicted guy for all kinds of fraudulent charges by the name of Lev Parnas claims that Trump knew all this stuff, and now this is this new bombshell that's supposed to show that he really is guilty, and really all it is just the same tactic as they used with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings when they brought what's-her-face out at the last minute to claim that he was a rapist abuser, and the whole story fell apart. And so that's happening with this guy too. But that doesn't mean they'll stop. They've got nothing. They are at their last Hail Mary here to try to stop Trump before 2020, as the most recent Democrat debate proved. So they're going to throw as much mud as they can and hope something sticks, and there'll be other kind of hysterical lunacy that's going to come out during the impeachment trial, before it, after it. I mean, they've got nothing left. They're desperate. And the bottom line is, you won't hear this on the news, the bottom line as to what's going on here and what has gone on here with the impeachment has to do with one person, Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. It is widely believed that she will not survive the next 4 years if Trump is reelected. She'll either become too sickly and have to retire, or she'll just outright die. She is elderly and has battled cancer. We certainly don't wish that on her or anybody for that matter, but that's the brutal reality of the situation. And the Democrats know that if the Republicans maintain control of the Senate and Trump gets reelected, the chances are very good that he will appoint at least one, maybe even two more Supreme Court justices during his second term. Breyer is also getting up there in age, and I think he was another Clinton appointee, one of the ones Hillary wanted that Bill put on the court. So it would mean that there would be a huge conservative bloc on the Supreme Court, a large majority of justices that are center-right or more right in their politically right in their judicial philosophy. So that means all these things that the Democrats have pushed on American society through the Supreme Court in the past 30 years, because they couldn't get them through any legislatures, whether state legislatures or the Congress, they won't be getting those easy victories anymore, because they can't use the Supreme Court to trump the legislative branch of government if we get more conservative justices on there. And they know that. And one of the big things that's in play here is abortion. Again, they won't tell you that, but it is, because they are scared to death that the Roe versus Wade will be revisited, because a lot of provisions in that ruling had to do with the limitations of science back in the early 1970s that we now have answers for. So much of the argumentation and the rationale for Roe has been disproven now. So they've got no legal leg to stand on anymore, and they're scared to death that they're going to lose that holy grail. The billions of dollars that Planned Parenthood makes and spreads around to Democrats, the extra billions of dollars that they're denying making over selling the body parts of dead aborted babies, all of that is in danger. And over $500 million that they get in U.S. taxpayer dollars every year, that's in danger. And plus, many states will stop supporting them if they don't have to worry about the courts overruling that decision. So that's part of what's going on here. It's a big deal in what's going on here. The agenda of the left is crumbling. They have their backs against the wall, and they're going to act like more and more hysterical lunatics as this progresses. In the Senate, look for Chuckle Schumer to be, unhinged half the time, because he's going to demand things that he has no right to demand because he's in the minority. The Republicans control the Senate, therefore Mitch McConnell is in the driver's seat, and some of the other senior Republicans like Lindsey Graham are in the driver's seat about what happens here. And they will try to do things in a way that doesn't make the Senate look as foolish and juvenile and JV as the House Democrats did. When the trial begins, basically, and I think I've talked about this in previous videos, so I'll go through it one more time just to prep you for what's ahead. Basically, the 7 managers that Pelosi and ilk have appointed from the House are the prosecutors. Those 7 members, they include Schiff and Nadler and a bunch of other unknown people who are going to prosecute the case. They'll have a day or two to go over the case. And basically what they have to present is the evidence that they collected from Schiff's hearings, his secret in the bunker hearings, and also the public ones. That's going to be their case. At least that's where it starts. There will be no witnesses up front. There'll be no grandstanding up front. They will have, I think they said maybe 2 days to present their evidence. And then President Trump's legal team will be able to serve as his defense witnesses and rebut everything they've said, poke holes in all their arguments. which shouldn't be hard because there are plenty of holes there already. The case is so weak, and it's not even criminal, but that doesn't matter to the Democrats. Trump's legal team has been announced in the last day or so, too. It will include his main lawyers, Pat Scipione, I think that's how his name is pronounced, Jay Sekulow, who's also from the American Center for Law and Justice, a Christian legal advocacy organization, will be the two lead counsels. Then he's also got a few others that you might have heard of. Pam Bondi is the former Attorney General in Florida. She was a big Trump supporter. You might have seen her on some of the talk shows recently. Also, somebody who blasts from the past, Ken Starr, who was the special prosecutor who dug up all the evidence on Bill Clinton's crimes before he was impeached. He presented his evidence to the House. See the difference here between Clinton and Trump? The Republicans in the House during the Clinton era appointed an independent counsel, an outside guy, to investigate. That was Starr. Now, what happened was it was done in-house with the Democrats now, with Adam Schiff, who was a member of the House and on the Senate or the House Intelligence Committee. He was, in a sense, the main investigator. So it wasn't done by an independent. It was a partisan hack, basically. But Ken Starr has been through this before. He's an eminent legal scholar, and he will bring some weight to the Trump's defense team. Another very interesting person that's on the Trump defense team is Professor Alan Dershowitz. He is a former constitutional law professor from Harvard University, Harvard School of Law. He is somebody who is an expert on the Constitution. Nobody would argue that. Interestingly, he is also a liberal. He's a Democrat. He's not somebody who ever voted for Trump, but he is what they would call a classic liberal. He was not a left-wing socialist. He was more of a civil liberties kind of guy. In fact, he was associated with the ACLU for a while until they became more radical, and he distanced himself from them. But his part on the team is not to defend Trump, but to explain that according to what the Constitution actually says and means, what the Democrats have brought doesn't meet the standards for impeachment, so therefore it shouldn't proceed. Now, how far he'll get in that argument, who knows, but he's at least going to put pressure on perhaps some Democrat senators to consider what they're doing. Because he's basically saying, here's what the law says, here's what the Constitution says, and what Schiff and fellow clowns from the House have brought to you folks here in the Senate is nothing close to what is required for the impeachment of a sitting president. Now, why is he doing this? Why would he want to help Trump out? Well, his goal isn't to help Trump. His goal is to protect the Constitution, also to protect the office of the president, the presidency. He's said this on TV, and he's right, that if this is allowed to stand, it means every future president will be impeached by somebody from the opposite party. Every time the House is of the opposite party of the president, there will probably be an impeachment. And the Republicans are already saying, when we get control of the House again, if there's a Democrat president, watch out, we're going to get even, which is silly. Impeachment was supposed to only be a last resort way to get rid of a criminal in the White House, and not just to be used because you don't agree with his policies or he's doing things you don't like. It's all silly and nonsensical, and that's why he's opposed to this. It's not that he loves Trump so much, it's just he reveres the Constitution, and he doesn't want to see the office of president be trashed forever. It's part of the separation of powers and the tension between the three branches of government that our founding fathers set up to work together to make sure that we had freedom and we had a lasting republic. So that's why he's there. And there are a couple others, too, that are on the team that I don't know all that well, but obviously they were chosen for their abilities. So that will happen. Then they'll both have their days to argue their positions. Then every member of the Senate is serving as a juror. They will sit in their seats quietly. They will listen. None may speak, none may get up and give speeches, none may just blow off the session because they want to be somewhere else, like in Iowa campaigning perhaps. They'll have to sit there. If they have any questions, they will have the right to have those questions asked. What they have to do is put them in writing, submit them to the Chief Justice. He will look at them, and then he will ask the questions of whichever side they're directed to. And I'm sure he'll make a determination of relevance or redundancy. Obviously, if 4 senators ask a similar type of question, he's not going to ask 4 questions. He's going to combine them together to make one, just for the sake of efficiency. But he will then ask those questions. Now, after that, they can either decide that they want more information, which means more witnesses, or they can move to vote on what has been presented. What the Democrats want to do is bring in more witnesses because they're still on a fishing expedition. They still don't have the smoking gun they wanted to get rid of Trump, so they're going to try to muddy the waters as best they can in this trial so that people don't see the actual truth and hope for a Hail Mary. Whereas on the other side, there is no need for witnesses. Our standard of justice in this country is innocent until proven guilty. So, the Trump's legal team doesn't have to prove his innocence. They just have to disprove the claims of guilt from the other side. In other words, they don't have to offer a whole bunch of witnesses to show that Trump didn't do what he's accused of, unless it would turn out that they think that that was necessary. Now, Adam Schiff and his comrades in the Communist Democrat Party in the House didn't allow any Republican witnesses in any of their hearings, so technically I could say because Jonathan Turley was one near the very end in Nadler's committee. But other than that, they weren't allowed to. So it was a very one-sided kangaroo court, very old-style Soviet Union trial. But in the Senate, it wouldn't work that way. If for some reason the Democrats push to have witnesses, then what will happen is the Republicans will also be able to call their own witnesses. Now, most of the Republicans don't want to go through that because it could drag on for months and months and months, and they really don't want to turn it into a circus. But if somehow the Democrats are successful in getting the call for witnesses in and it's approved to do so, then they will lose control over which witnesses. I mean, they can call their own, but then the Republicans can also have rebuttal witnesses of their own. Right now what the Democrats want to do is they want to get like John Bolton and Mulvaney and a couple of other high-level Trump cabinet members or former cabinet members to testify. To this point they haven't, because they expected that the president would invoke what's called executive privilege. In other words, as the President of the United States, he doesn't have to share confidential meetings and information he has with his closest advisors with everybody. He's protected in the Constitution for that. If the Democrats really wanted the testimony from Bolton and Mulvaney and others, that should have been done in the House when this investigation was ongoing. And if Trump refused or claimed executive privilege, then they should have gone to the Supreme Court and asked them to rule on it, and the Supreme Court would decide who's covered by executive privilege and who isn't. They would, in a sense, define that a bit more clearly for this case. Since they didn't do that, now if they try to call Bolton, if for some reason Bolton and Mulvaney and some of his others are called, Trump will invoke executive privilege. Roberts will have to stop the trial at that point, and it will have to be sent to the Supreme Court to be argued about from both sides and decided before the trial could proceed. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't work overnight. You might be talking months till they can schedule a hearing, have the hearing, and write an opinion with a ruling. So that would drag impeachment out for a long time, and nobody really wants that except the Democrats because they think somehow politically that will help them. On the other hand, what they also risk is if they do call witnesses, then the Republicans can call Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, this Eric Ciamarella, the whistleblower. They can call Adam Schiff, who colluded with this whistleblower to pull all this together. And they would have to testify under oath. And I guarantee you that's the last thing Biden wants to do in an election year. And he won't be able to protect his son from scrutiny anymore, nor will the DNC, as they've done so far to try to protect Biden and his family. Because Biden's ties to Obama, and the truth of the matter is Obama's hands are dirty in this whole mess, too, with the money laundering in other countries and so on. So, at least the knowledge of it. So it would turn into a huge catastrophe for the Democrat Party, but who knows, if they're hell-bent on destroying themselves, maybe they will. So that's where things stand. Keep watching it as it unfolds next week if you're interested. We'll try to give more analysis about how things go. I guarantee you that some of the more with it conservative senators will pose some thoughtful questions which will help Trump's case, like Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham or some others might put some things out there that will further trash the Democrats' ability to sound credible if needed, and we'll see what happens. Most likely the outcome is, okay, Trump gets acquitted, it's all done, Pelosi wrings her hands, says how biased everybody is, and everybody hates her because she's a woman from San Francisco, blah, 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 until her dentures fall out. In the meantime, Trump's approval rating keeps growing in the polls and will continue to grow. During this week, through the signing of the articles of impeachment, the Dow pushed over 29,000, and then with the trade deals, it continues to go up. And the economy will continue to roar over this next year. The Democrats will come out with more shadowy witnesses that they claim have dirt on Trump, and who knows what they're going to do next. But it's all designed to keep them from losing control. And it's happening, and they're like the guy furiously with the bucket in hand trying to get the water out of bailing water out of the sinking ship. Doesn't matter how fast they bail, it's coming in faster than it's going out, and they're going down. And that's because Trump has the support of the American people. When you look at his rallies, you see there are thousands and thousands of people who come out. I saw a news story also this week that his rally in Milwaukee this week, of the thousands of people who were there, 57% of them were not Republicans. 57% were either Democrats or independents. That's a majority of the people who were there that are supporting him, that are taking their time, standing in line for hours to come out and see him. That bodes well for the Republicans in the next election, and Democrats have to be scared to death that they're going to lose their own base. They're losing this center group of independents, as well they should, because their policies are stupid. They will destroy people's lives. They will destroy people's financial security, whereas what Trump is doing is protecting freedom, home and abroad, and his economic plan is making everybody's 401ks grow. It's increasing more jobs, bringing more jobs back to America, and making us more efficient trading partners in the world. So the Democrats really have nothing other than this smear crap. And, they have their idiots in the mainstream press who want to support that nonsense. But right now, we have to go through this final phase of this impeachment thing, and I look forward to the fact that maybe it'll just be over quickly within a week to 10 days. Trump will be acquitted, and we can move on with our life. That doesn't mean that these guys like Biden and others shouldn't still be investigated for their gross abuse of power and fraud and money laundering schemes, but that's another battle to fight on another day. So, thank you for listening. I hope this is helpful to you as you're trying to make sense out of all the nonsense that's going on, and just keep the faith, keep on believing, keep on living your life, and make sure that in 2020, when you get to the election voting booth, don't vote for anybody who has a D after their name. Let's send the Democrats into, oblivion with this next election to show that we're sick and tired of them trying to destroy our country. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications bell so that we can let you know when new videos are posted. All right. Thank you very much.